Hey guys, Unexceptional Rounder here, and today this is the poker show, and it's called Squeeze Play. I'm here with my co-host, Shark Slayer. Shark Slayer, you go ahead and introduce yourself. All right, so today we're going to be. I've gotten a lot of questions lately on YouTube, and so what I did is I compiled some of those, and I'm going to be going through playing hands. Feel free to ask questions about the hands that you see, and also any other questions you want. But I'm going to take this opportunity to answer the questions that people have already asked on my YouTube channel. Also, we want to. I've got a giveaway during the show. Not really a giveaway, sort of a giveaway announcement, but stay tuned. That's going to be a little bit later on, and I won't forget to mention that. So today we're playing 50 no limit, and I just moved up to 50 no limit, so I'm only playing 2 tables. Also, I want to be able to focus on the play. The way it's going to work is, for the most part, I'm going to be playing, and then Shark Slayer is going to be monitoring the chat, asking me questions that come up, and then I'll always kind of stop, and the current hand will take precedence, because that's kind of the most entertaining thing to watch. So Jack 9 suited, I actually have a starting hand chart in front of me that I use as just sort of a way to stay out of trouble. And in the cutoff, Jack 9 suited is right on the edge, but we've got the player in the small blind sitting out, so we're going to go ahead and raise it up. We are still in the cutoff, but you know what? That probably wasn't a good idea. I didn't see that this guy only had $9. We might get away with it. We're in position now if we get called, and we take it down. So I'll talk about a couple of things that I think about when I'm opening a hand. Aside from the starting hand chart, the number one thing I want to look at, because the starting hand chart takes into account position already. That's factored in. The next things that I'm going to look at are stack sizes. And the reason is that various stack sizes are going to the various stack sizes are always going to affect how you want to play. And by that I mean the hands with a lot of potential to make a big hand or win a big hand. Those are the types of hands you want to play against players who are deep. Against like short stacks, you want high card value because you're not really afraid of getting it in with top pair. But do you really want to get it in with top pair against somebody who's 200 big blinds deep when you're 200 big blinds deep? Not really. Did you check the audio's good? All right. 10-5 suited on the button. Honestly, if you want to raise this, I have no problem with it. I'm going to go ahead and fold it. Again, because let's look at, anytime you raise, what the people to the right of you did doesn't matter. Never, a good saying is, when you're deciding what to do with your hand, look left. Always think look left. That's from Tommy Angelo's book, No Limits. And the reason he says that is because to the right is the past, to the left is the future. The left is what you need to worry about. Everything that's happened to the right of you is information you already have. You know what all their stack sizes are. You know if they raised or folded. When you look to the left is that's what hasn't happened yet, and that's when you want to think about the things that haven't happened and what could happen. So when I look left on this table to the right, I see that this guy has a short stack. I don't really want to get all in with 10-5 suited against a short stack. But if I make an open and he re-raises all in, because of pot odds, I'm going to be forced to call there. Exactly. So you may be sitting under the gun, but if there are, people sitting out, it doesn't, your position is actually to the right. So what I like to do is, instead of thinking, the way I labeled my chart is, instead of saying under the gun +1, under the gun +2, I don't actually really like that much, because that implies that all that matters is how far you are from under the gun, when what really matters is how far you are from the button. So my chart is labeled button, cutoff, hijack. What does that say? 3 to the button, 4 to the button, 5 to the button. So that you're actually thinking in terms of, okay, how many positions do I have until I'm in the button? And then under the gun. And so that way, when you look, it's not, okay, how far am I from under the gun? It's how far am I from the button? I'm 3 off the button. Okay, I go to the 3 to the button range. And then you don't make the mistake of accidentally thinking, oh, you know what, I actually wasn't under the gun here. These two guys are sitting out. If you start counting at the button, again, you're looking left. You're seeing exactly what has to happen after you act. Also, this hand chart, I am going to post this video to YouTube. If you want this hand chart, just send me just subscribe to the channel, send me a message, and I'll give you the link to it. It's not up yet, so I don't have the link yet. But by the time I post this, I'll post this video later on today, and I'll upload that to my website, and you can go ahead and get it. Ace-3 in the small blind. Honestly, you can almost raise. You don't want to be crazy from the small blind, but with the ace, we do have a blocker. And a blocker means he's less likely to have an ace. And if he's less likely to have an ace, that takes a lot of hands that he would play back at us with out of his range. So, hands that people like to play back against raises are ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack, things like that. If we have one of the aces, well, that's an ace that he can't have. It means that mathematically, he's less likely to have that. Here, queen-jack in the small blind, we do have this short stack to worry about, but honestly, the raise on the button, he only makes it 3x, 3 times the big blind. We can actually make a small pot size raise. $3 would be doubling his bet. $4.50 is 2.5 times his bet. So we can make a $4.50 3 bet and expect him to either fold a lot or be able to take it away post flop with a continuation bet, because his range on the button is going to be very, very wide, and we'll be able to bet and have him fold. We'll be able to 3 bet and have him fold a lot of his hands, because excuse me, if we look at our button range, and let me talk a little bit about ace-4, and then Shark Slayer, or Shark, I'll just call you Shark, that's good. Are we on that level? We're pretty informal. Just kind of, if I tail off on a topic, just sort of jot it down so I don't forget to come back to it. With the ace-4, I could call here, but if I call, and I'm not going to, because it is a potential hand to call with. I'd like to be deeper. I'd like to be over 100 big blinds deep. But if I call there, I need to know that I'm not looking to flop an ace. I'm looking to flop straights and flushes. And I think a lot of players have trouble with that. So I went ahead and folded it. You can call. You have position. You can make a play on the person. If an ace doesn't flop, it's going to be hard. It's going to be easier to make a play on them even. So I'm okay with calling there. I wouldn't 3-bet. There's no value in that really. But right, and that's something you definitely want to think about and consider when you're playing. Like, you want to you want to think about what the point of playing the hand is. Like some hands, and I'll go to extremes, and I'm not going to quote the book because I forget which one it is, but pretty much everything I know I learned from either books or YouTube videos, so none of it's really my own thinking. But you've got 2 types of hands. You've got equity hands, and you've got showdown hands, and you've got like bluff hands, so steal hands. Aces is the extreme. Like, that has a ton of value. You're going to win almost all of your money with aces on winning, like on showdown, on having the best hand. With ace-4 suited, a lot of your value is going to be steal equity. So you're going to steal a fair amount of the time. And so always think about why am I playing this hand, and how do I have to make money on this hand? If you're calling if you're calling bets with a hand, a lot of times to make money with that in the long run, if it's not a value hand, once in a while you have to bluff, you have to make some kind of move, or else it's not going to work. And then let me you want me to talk about the starting balance and current balance, or you want to go back to the button? Yeah, so I thought that would be kind of entertaining because there's no tracking software on Bovada, but I thought it'd be entertaining. I always kind of forget to talk about it because I'm not a very results-oriented player. I honestly don't care. That's not up on my screen. That's overlays on XSplit, so I'm not looking at that stuff. I don't really look at that ever while I'm playing because it doesn't help me decide whether or not the guy is. It doesn't help me hand read. Knowing how much I've won or lost does nothing for my hand reading skills. Now let me go back to the button ranges, and let's see. You remember exactly what I was talking about with the button stuff? Okay, no problem. All right, so here we've got an open raise from the cutoff. We've got King 10 suited. This is a spot where a lot of players would probably say, okay, I've got face cards and they're suited. It's a good opportunity, but we've got two players to act behind. If we call, we set up a perfect opportunity for them to make a squeeze play, and so people do love to make squeezes, and we want to avoid being the victim of them. We're gonna be the one committing the squeeze more often. Here again, ace 9, and notice that we're in the cutoff, right? There's 4 hands left. We're in the cutoff. It would have been an open from the hijack anyway, but I just want to point out that we looked left and we saw 3 hands left. Yeah. A lot of times, things that happen, players don't really think were a mistake they made because, I didn't know that guy was going to raise, or I didn't know that was going to happen. But keep in mind that over and over and over again, you need to actually decide how often does something happen. So, what do I do here? Do we make our standard continuation bet? No, I'm not going to. There's 3 players left to act. Now, yes, the only way I'm going to win this is by seeing a showdown, but there's 3 players left to act. There's a good chance that they either have diamonds, a queen, a set. I'm not going to go and lose a bunch of money when there's no way I can improve. If I had ace 9 of diamonds, sure, I'll bet. If I had 10 jack of diamonds, maybe I would bet. Like, there's some showdown value. Ace 6 of diamonds, yes. But the ace 9, no diamonds, no draw. The best I can hope for is a top pair that may or may not even be good. I'm done with this hand. And you need to be able to recognize that and get away from it when it's time. So this is going pretty well. Moving up in stakes. I'll talk a little bit about moving up and what I do when I move up, because I've had some really bad experiences moving up. When I moved up to 100 no limit, I used to play. I used to pretty much play for like a summer. I played 50 no limit full time. I was able to make about $30 an hour playing 50 no limit. That was a long time ago, though. I don't know that you can attain that now. I'm honestly not sure. But when I moved up to 100 no limit, I tried to play much more aggressively. I thought I had to be looser. I thought I had to make more moves, and I ended up not doing very well. was up and down, up and down. I ended up having a day that I lost 7 buy-ins. And, you know, at 100 no limit, and at that time in my life, $700 was a fair amount of money. And I was pretty upset about that. So, you know, I understood that there were variants and there were swings. But when I looked through some of my hands, it was stuff that I never would have done at 50 no limit. And so it made me realize that, you know, I don't need to be more aggressive or more crazy when moving up. Really, the opposite should be true until you get comfortable with the stakes you're playing. Now, at 25 NL, you know, I was very comfortable. I only played a few games at 10 no limit. At 50 NL, if you lose a big pot, you know, that's a $50 pot. You know, that's twice as much, obviously. And so, to me, I've realized that really means I should be playing a little bit tighter and being more cautious. Not playing less aggressive, but I don't want to just be, you know, donking off all my chips, making dumb plays when I don't need to. I should be playing tighter, getting in with easier hands to play, and making my life easier. There are a lot of things you can do, and a lot of decisions I make are based on how easy is it. You know, how easy is it going to make me to play this hand? That's where the bet fold comes into play all the time. When you bet, knowing that you just fold when raised, when you make a bet fold on the flop or a bet fold on the turn, that's a really strong play. That is very easy to do. And actually, I watched some of Shark's hands last night. He sent me a video to look over, trying to help him move up through the micro stakes right now. He's a new player, and that was one of the things I saw him do a lot, or not do a lot actually, is you would bet the turn and continuation bet the turn. Let's look. Again, I'm just going to go with the chart. Cutoff, Queen 10 offsuit. You know, it's not a raise. I could raise it. It's literally like one hand under my raising range. You know, Queen Jack offsuit is a raise. But, you know, again, for moving up into a new level, you can play a little bit tighter. Queen 10 gets people into a lot of trouble. It's not an easy hand to play. And I didn't quite see all the play on the left here, but looks like that was a $22 pot. And I actually missed it, but I'll try to, I don't know if anyone else caught it. You know, in Six Max, I haven't recently. I mean, I haven't been on like training sites recently. I haven't seen what people are doing recently. But in Six Max, I haven't found a whole lot of use for limping, especially with a speculative hand like Queen 10. It's going to just be very hard to play. It's going to be hard to rep your hands. The reason raising is so effective is because when you raise with a hand like Queen 10 suited, or even Queen 10, and an ace flops, you like that, you know, because if somebody's calling you with a speculative hand, they are able to put you on that ace very easily. They're able to put you on that king very easily. If you're limping in, you can't rep those hands that you don't have anymore, which is why, you know, I could make an argument for, you know, limping aces or limping ace kings if you have like some crazy aggressive player behind you. But again, those are very specific, player-specific circumstances. And so when I just sit down at a table on Bodog, I almost never get an opportunity to make those. And again, with bet folding, what I saw you doing a lot in your video was you would go ahead and, even if you had like a decent hand, I can't remember exactly, but the hand was approximately, I think you had pocket nines, and the flop was Jack 6 or something like that, and you bet the flop and the player. And here I'll just check the twos. I don't need to raise the twos because I'm not really worried. I honestly don't care that much about winning this hand, and it's not that small pots don't matter. They do, but I have position here. It's not a big deal. The 8-9, if this player had a full buy-in, I would probably raise. It might still be good to raise, but here, because he limped, you know, do I think he has a king? Probably not. He probably has like a weak hand, and, you know, I can take the opportunity to bet. Here, I don't turn a great, like the turn isn't great. However, I've now turned a flush draw. On the right table, I have ace-9 suited. We do have an open. I could 3-bet this, but being out of position is going to be tough to play. I'm just going to let this go. I'm going to focus on this hand. Here, I'm going to raise 3 times his dollar bet. I have equity. There's a good chance that he's on a weak hand. He does call. We do hit. Awesome situation. And now he makes this 50-set bet, which looks a lot like a block bet, and we're going to try to get our value here. So one thing that I see or can be a problem is if you hit a big hand on the river, don't try to get 2 more bucks. Either, you know, it was worth it to call or it wasn't. And so I'm going to go ahead and make an $8 bet, and, you know, we'll see what he has. He ends up folding, which is fine, but I'm not going to just try to get another $2 there. You know, I ended up hitting a hand that was a 1 in 5 shot. If I'm going to make that play work in the long run, I need to make some money when I hit. I'm going to make some money when he folds. I need to make sure that when I do hit, I make a lot of money. And that's how that hand becomes profitable. If you don't try to do that, the hand's not going to end up being profitable. Right. Yeah, exactly. And what you can do to kind of prevent mistakes like that is have a checklist, pretty much. And I used to play with all sorts of. I used to see my monitor. It was, you know, covered in sticky notes and taped on messages to try and either keep me from tilting or keep me from playing bad, or, you know, a checklist to try and make sure I play well. Is this the second time that this guy has limped my big blind? Yeah, so I'll go ahead and raise up here, see if we can't get him to just fold and stop doing that. You know, the hand didn't really matter. I just want to, I'm going to be playing at this table for 2 hours, you know, as long as it doesn't break pretty much, or as long as it's not terrible. And I don't want this guy just limping in on every single big blind that I have and playing a pot. I want him to either fold or raise and have a hand. And so I want to establish that early on. And again, any ace you can raise on the small blind. You know, just very wide range of hands. I don't have an exact like hand range, but I would say anything you're raising on the button, you can probably raise on the small blind. If you really don't feel comfortable playing in the small blind, or if it's a leak, if you're losing a lot of money out of the small blind, you could just change it to your cutoff range. And that's still like my cutoff range is 18.1% of hands. So you're still going to be raising the small blind a fair amount when it folds around. Right. Well, no, yeah. So yeah, you had right. You had pocket nines, and I think the flop was like Jack Jack X, you know, Jack Jack 6, something like that. And you made your continuation bet, which is actually both a continuation bet and a value bet on Jack Jack 6. I mean, there are some times where he'll call there with, you know, 8 7s. He could have ace 6. People are going to call once a lot on that. But I mean, it's a great board to continuation bet. You'll get a lot of folds, but people that are calling are not always going to have you beat. And the turn came, and I believe it was either an ace or blank. I actually can't remember what the turn was. And this guy actually does this again, so I'm going to raise again. And here I've got ace queen, so if he decides to make a move or something, I can actually re-raise again. So that's a profitable situation. If I've got a guy limp folding every single small blind, that's an extra, you know, 25 cents a round I can make. So the thing is that you went and you checked the turn, and it gave him the ability to take the pot away. So when you checked the turn, you showed weakness, and really I think the play there would have been to bet fold the turn, because you bet, one, to protect your hand, two, for value, and it defines your hand right there. If he raises in that spot where there's two jacks on the board, you can be pretty sure that you're beat. Either by a really big hand or by actually, a jack. So it's okay, and it makes it very easy for you to get away from it. But what happens when you check the turn? You make your range look much weaker. And so when you check and your hand looks weaker, now it gives him the opportunity to take a shot at bluffing, or maybe even think his hand is good and think that you were just making a continuation bet, when really you have a decent hand. And so now you turned your nines, which were like a value hand and a hand to protect, into a bluff catcher, which isn't really what you want to be doing with nines in that spot. So there I would have recommended betting the flop and bet folding the turn. And that just makes it very easy to define your hand. Yeah, Bovada is kind of a special case because there's no note taking or anything, so you can get away with a little bit more stuff like that on Bovada than other sites. And here, this is a very easy call, and I want to talk on, and I'll make the call, and I want to continue to talk about it a little bit. This guy's short. I have Queen Jack, which decent high card hand, but I'm just going to get out kicked a lot with a queen or a jack, and I do have position, but this guy's short, and we've got players to act behind. I'm not closing out the action with a great hand, and again setting up that squeeze play for someone else. And I'm going to probably end up check folding this. I have an open-ended straight, and being out of position isn't the best, but he raised from the hijack, so a lot of these cards aren't in his range, and I think it's a good opportunity that we can make a raise, because we do have a draw, so we've got some equity, and this really matches up with our big blind calling range, and so it's a good spot. So we'll raise it, and we'll make it just $6. We'll a little less than 3 times his bet. We'll raise it up to $6. And I would expect that, because there's a straight out, because there's a flush draw out there, he can put us on a lot of draws, and he can call, but he also has to worry about sets. He also has to worry about further streets. So depending on what hand he has, it's going to be kind of difficult for him to stay in this thing. And we end up taking it down. It works out. So that's good. It's always nice when things work how you want them to. But even if it doesn't work, we just need to know that over the long term, we'll make money on that play. All right. Go ahead. All right, pretty intense question. Now, that was a question somebody sent me in a message, also, right? Part of that. Okay. So we'll leave the questions anonymous if you want. Some of them are left in the comments. I don't remember which ones, but I'm gonna leave them anonymous. If people don't want their name on, then that's cool, no problem. If you do, I guess just put it in your question. But okay, so I got bankroll questions. Short-term swing questions, and then kind of like moving up and down kind of falls under bankroll, like stakes. Okay, well, let me hit bankroll first. number one, I've got a video on bankroll management on YouTube. So I would recommend checking that out. And it doesn't give like strict guidelines. It does give some guidelines, but it doesn't give strict rules for how to play with your bankroll. It gives you kind of general ideas, and bankroll is a very personal thing. So I can talk a little bit about how I feel about bankroll, but I mean it's your money, and so you should be comfortable with whatever you decide. Now, from a strictly mathematical standpoint, you can look at bankroll there, and it's I guess simple, not easy, but it's a simple mathematical equation. You use your variance and your win rate, and you pretty much your risk of ruin. What you're willing to risk. Let's talk about these fours. The reason they're a call is because one, we have odds. This guy has $51, so we've got the odds to call, and we're closing the action. We don't have to worry about getting re-raised. So it's an easy spot to call with fours. And also, how are we going to make money in this spot with fours? We're going to hit a set. So when we don't hit a set, we're not going to mess around with this flop too much. It's not, that's not how this hand makes money. This hand makes money at showdown when we flop a set. And so again, make sure that you have the odds, make sure you know what your goal is for the hand, and then you won't make as many mistakes post-flop. So it's pretty personal, but in general, kind of I guess I would call the standard is 30 buy-ins. Mathematically, though, if you're going to play 30 buy-ins and you're going to cash out everything over 30 buy-ins, you will eventually lose your money. All right, so you'll experience swings greater than that. However, if you're going to play 30 buy-ins, leave your money on there, move up in stakes when you move up, move down in stakes when you lose money. The buy-in rules aren't exactly the same. For example, I could play with 10 buy-ins, but if I'm not willing to move down, that'll be very difficult, and I'll probably lose that money. So what it really comes down to is whether or not you're willing to move up and down, and that's kind of what more or less affects those. A lot of people open any suited ace under the gun, and I've done that too. But again, I'm playing I just moved up to 50 no limit. I want to take away the difficult decisions. I don't want to play hands that are going to be very, very difficult to play post-flop. I don't think I need to play those hands to make money. I think that I might need those hands to expand my win rate, to win more money. Maybe I need to include those hands. But right now, I'm just sort of establishing myself at the level. All I want to do is have a solid win rate and lower my variance a little bit when first moving up. Bankroll. Right now I'm moving up, so I'm playing with a smaller bankroll. You can see what my balance is. My current balance right there is actually pulled from my from the Bovada software, and it includes the money on the table. So I'm only playing with I don't know, what is that, 16, 7. I'm playing with about 18 buy-ins. It's not the 30 buy-ins that you should play if you're, staying. It's not the 50 that you would play if you were like a professional, or a lot of professionals might want 100. But I don't play professionally. I can reload my bankroll if I lose my money. I have a full-time job. So those types of things really factor into your bankroll. I mean, I could technically probably be playing 100 no limit, but the reason I'm not is because I like having a bankroll. I like not stressing about having to reload, having to, have big fluctuations in my bankroll. I'm playing, kind of for fun and to teach and for my YouTube channel. And so I guess part of it is I want to set a good example for, how I think that, I don't know, what has led me to be successful. And I have, I've known people that have probably been better poker players but didn't manage their bankroll as well, and I don't feel like they've enjoyed poker maybe as much as I've been able to. I've really never. Alright, so guy rivered his 2-pair. The other guy had top pair. So wow, he got in with top pair with the ace-10, looks like at some point. So that was kind of a big hand to get in there with a pair of 10s on the left table. And again, I would make a note, but I didn't see all the action, and this guy's if this guy leaves, that note would disappear. So good or bad about Bovada, I don't feel as guilty not taking notes, but you don't get that extra information either. The other thing, short-term swings. So there's a few ways to handle short-term swings. The most important thing is to review your hands. I probably overdo this when I get on a downswing or I'm having a bad day, a bad streak. I will sometimes, really I'll move down and then I'll just spend like a week looking at hands, trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong. It's probably a little bit overkill. A lot of the times it could just be that you're running bad. And there's a lot of ways to run bad. There's, not only equity and things like that, but you can run bad just by, you can run bad by getting your good hands in the small blind instead of on the button. You can run bad by, running into having an aggressive player always sitting on your left. Like things like that. Some things you can control, some things you can't, but it's not just straight equity. People pull up their Hold'em Manager or whatever and look at their up or down in EV, and it helps. It's good to look at, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Short-term swings, which is another question I got asked about. I generally just look over my hands a lot, review, see if I think I'm making mistakes or see if I'm running bad, and just play. I think one way to avoid the stress of the swings is bankroll. Trying to make it so that the money isn't, I don't want to say not important, but it shouldn't stress you out. The money shouldn't be like a stressful thing. You should be so comfortable at the level you're playing that if you think the spot is worth going, if you think you get yourself into a spot and it's worth it to put your money in, you go ahead and put your money in. You don't back down just because you're scared of losing the $50 or the $100 or the $1,000 if you're playing 5-10. And that's the thing is bankroll helps a lot with that. And just understanding the math. Those are all things that I would recommend to help deal with short-term swings. I used to, if I had a real bad swing or whatever, I would hire a coach for a couple lessons. I would, even just one or two, say, hey, can you just watch me play, see if you pick up anything, see if I'm doing anything wrong. Sometimes there would be stuff. Sometimes it'd just be like, there's some things you can improve here or there, but I think you're just running bad. And that would be enough to kind of get my confidence back and get going. So that's how I've dealt with it in the past, and that's how I would recommend doing it. If it's more intense than that, Your Worst Poker Enemy by Alan Schoonmaker is a good book. So it's about the mental game of poker, and I would recommend reading that. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true and that's the other thing. That's the whole part of moving down is you move down to get back into that competition that you are comfortable with, that you can beat, and you kind of again regain your confidence, regain your bankroll, and then go ahead and take another shot. And if you can do that, if you can show that discipline, everything else should come together. I mean, that's it's. A lot of poker is about being disciplined with your bankroll, and that will make you more successful. Yeah, no, I understand the question. Um, so the there's a few different things. Some different factors are, the site you're playing on. Do I worry about that on Bovada? Again, there's not. I think there is some ways you can track people, but it's not. It's not as easy, so I don't really worry about it as much. There's, also how observant are players. If players aren't using a HUD, which is a heads-up display, it overlays stats on the player. They probably aren't going to necessarily notice how many hands I've been playing, especially if they're 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 tabling. They aren't going to notice that. However, like if I was playing on a site that had a HUD and had stats, and I looked at my own stats over the last 30 hands, and I've been really tight, I might take like one hand that's like a hand below what I would normally open and open it, just to. I'm not going to stress about it, though. I'm not going to, it's not going to be a big factor. And I'll fold the king, too. I don't really want to play out of position against a short stack. Go ahead. Yeah. So, yeah, it's not something I've had a big issue with yet, and if I do, I'll address it. But so far, I haven't. Actually, most of my live streams have been winning sessions, so until that stops happening, I'm not going to worry about it a ton. Now, I am looking at playing on some other sites, and I'll deal with that as it goes. But till then, I'm not too worried. Actually, you know what? I forgot to put something up. I forgot to put my black bars up. Oops, I can't. I don't want to cut off my... There we go. Yeah. Make sure I don't sit out of any hands while I do this. Oh, if I had called, maybe. Yeah. I always try to think, and I'm sure I'm sure it's just kind of like a funny observation, but I try to always think about. I don't ever try to say I think he has this hand or that hand. I don't like to say like always, never. I don't like to think in absolutes, and I also don't like to think this specific hand. I like to try and think about the culmination of hands over the long run. Over the long run, do I think I make money by calling, raising, or folding here? Like, well, folding is always neutral. It's always zero. Keep that in mind. And I'm just gonna call down here. Right. Yeah, some folds are good for your win rate. I'll say that. Sometimes if you make, you can definitely make good folds, and those are very good for your win rate. So overall, yeah, you saved money, and saving money can be just as valuable as making money in the long run. So here I've got the King Jack offsuit, and this player has, I believe, if I kind of remember correctly, he's been opening a fair amount of hands, but King Jack offsuit isn't a great hand to 3